The Toronto branch of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress started working on Holodomor back in 2007. I was at a professional development day when I was still teaching, and there was somebody organizing a genocide course, so I decided to attend. And of course, they didn't have any mention of the Holodomor. So I let the UCC know. We did all kinds of political action as is necessary. Nobody was interested in talking to us at the beginning, so we ended up bombarding them with letters, and we did get some resolutions. So that was the beginning of the work that we were doing then, and we formed a Holodomor education team here in Toronto. Besides that, in 2009, I was appointed the chair of the National Holodomor Education Committee for UCC, Ukrainian Canadian Congress across Canada, to include the Holodomor in curriculum, because I saw that there was nobody coordinating it and it was time to do something about it. In both instances, these two organizations, their main aim was the inclusion of the Holodomor in school curriculum in Canada, and we felt that we had to have a separate committee from the awareness group, because you needed a group of professionals who knew what they were doing, were going to be listened to because they were part of the teachers' associations, and also knew how the system worked, including how to deal with the ministries of education. What are the triumphs that we've had across Canada? First of all, the Canadian government recognized the Holodomor back in 2008 when Yushchenko visited Canada. And they established a day of remembrance at that time of the Holodomor in November. This was a unanimous decision by all three political parties within the Canadian Parliament. The next thing was the establishment of Holodomor Memorial Day on the fourth Saturday in November, and recognition of the Holodomor by 5 provinces in Canada, probably the most important ones, except for BC. We still have to work on that one. So we have Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. Once more by unanimous decision by all parties. Work with individual school boards. This was extremely important, and that's where we started. We started with the biggest school board in Canada, the Toronto District School Board. Also the most opposing group of people that we could find, I guess, because that's what it ended up being. The Toronto District School Board, in actual fact, is the 4th largest school board in North America. So it's monstrous. What we did accomplish was that the Toronto District School Board passed 2 resolutions. One of them was to hold Holodomor Memorial Day on an annual basis on the 4th Friday, not the Saturday, because there's no school on Saturday, in their schools each year. And we did that. And the second was to prepare a unit of 2 units of study on the Holodomor, because when they asked, isn't this Holodomor being taught somewhere? We said no. And as a result, they did that. So that was the first step. Since then, we have been successful in the southern Ontario area of getting the Holodomor Memorial Day announced and placed on the agenda and in school calendars in quite a few boards across this area, like the Toronto Catholic Board, etc. I gave out some handouts to you, and if you take a look, there are instructions. Instructions on how to do this. How do we get local cities or local people in the Ukrainian community to try to get the Holodomor to get Holodomor Memorial Day and to encourage teachers to teach about the Holodomor. There are instructions on how to do this, so you can take a look at those. Next. A template letter of asking them to do this that we have developed, so it's all there for anybody who wants to use it. Next. And these are some of the school boards that are on board with us. And what we're doing, I gave out a little flyer with a skeletal hand that Hala Medveshkin illustrated. If you take a look at that, we print one of these flyers every single year with an announcement that they can read over the PA on Holodomor Memorial Day for each school. We also give suggestions as to where they can get teaching materials. We provide them with suggestions of activities that they could do and contact information where we could send speakers. So this goes out to the schools that we are working with, and that's very important. Every teacher will get one of these flyers, just as they do on the Holocaust. And we're getting some people coming out, so that's very important. They either can come to the center here for a presentation, or we can go to visit them. But the most important thing is the announcement. The word gets out, and that is very, very important. So that has been something that we have done. And as you can see, there are also, not just in the Toronto area, if you go back to the other one, you'll see that we were very lucky to have Edmonton. I've done some workshops in Edmonton, and the Edmonton Catholic School Board is on board with this as well. They're very actively involved in Holodomor Memorial Day, and also Regina in Saskatchewan have done it, the Catholics are doing very well. If you'll notice that some of the school boards actually asked me for a prayer. So I phoned a priest and we got a prayer. Some of them are doing their own, and I gave you an example of one from the Toronto Catholic District School Board. So that was interesting too. So they're developing stuff on their own. And in one school, I was told that they did the prayer in Ukrainian, and they had the kids do it. So it was very moving. The next thing, of course, that we've done is the preparation of teaching materials on Holodomor. And of course here, I started doing workshops, and I knew that when you go to a workshop, especially if it's a new topic, they know nothing about it, they won't teach it. So I prepared a lot of handouts, and I gave you lots of handouts. I'm a handout person, I use a lot of paper. So I've developed a workbook that is, I've been using for 5 years. It's in draft form with a skeletal hand on it. It's on the table over there with other curriculum. It is being published by the Kuryliw Press this summer. And I'll be speaking about the workbook itself tomorrow. There are lots of lessons, and I'll tell you more about what is actually in it tomorrow. Along with that, just a workbook with lesson plans is not good enough. Teachers say they don't know where to go and find information. So I developed a kit. And the kit is on the table as well. It has books in it, it has pamphlets, it has the workbook in it, it has the Harvest of Despair in it, and a CD on the Holodomor as well. So that there's a complete package which could be put into a school library or into a history department for use. And we were lucky to get funding for something like that. Aris Tutsulak and his wife provided us with some funding, because each one of those kits, to put it together, was $100. And if you want them to teach it, you've got to give it to them. You can't ask them to pay $100 when they don't know what you're doing yet, right? Eventually, they will want to buy it, but not at the moment. So this is very important. Work with ministries is another thing that has had to be done. And we have been working with, in order to get them to teach the course. You can go to individual school boards, and they can try to find a fit within the curriculum, as Mark will probably be telling you later on this afternoon. They can find genocide abuses, human rights abuses. They can find places where to fit it, but the teacher has to look for this. In order to get it taught properly, you have to go to the source. The ministry guidelines that are prepared on each course, they have examples of what to teach in brackets. We decided as a group that we had to visit with the Ministry of Education here in Ontario, who were going through curriculum review. And since 2009, we have been working diligently, meeting with different ministers, with the senior staff, and we have been working. Just on January the 17th, we had a meeting with Laurel Broughton, the former Minister of Education, who promised us that you have done as a community an excellent job, and you are definitely in the curriculum. I have yet to see the draft document, so we almost didn't believe her, because I've gone through 4 ministers of education, and so far we're waiting for the new curriculum to come out in September. So that's going to be important. Why it's important? No textbook is going to enter your information unless it's in the curriculum guide. The authors of textbooks read the curriculum guide, and then they place the materials in there. So this is very important. At the moment, Saskatchewan is doing the same thing. They've started their curriculum review, and in October, I visited Saskatchewan along with Mr. Puderak and Kathy Chabelle and others. We visited the Minister of Education, Marchuk, and the Deputy Premier, and also we visited ministry staff and discussed with them the possibility of putting Holodomor into the actual curriculum, which is very important. Now, Alberta already has it in the curriculum in specific places, and there is a local community organization that we've set up, a Holodomor Education Committee there as well that we've set up, and I work with them. And they have it in the curriculum, and I know that Vida's going to be telling you a lot more about the Manitoba curriculum, which is also in. So these are some of the provinces that where it is working. Now, in-service teacher training. In order to do something properly, teachers have to be trained. They need information. So I've been doing this since 2007 at various places. The Canadian Centre for Genocide Studies started in the summer of 2007. Professor Sirbin and I and Hailed Matrician did a presentation for a number of teachers across Canada. OHASTA is the Ontario History and Social Studies Teachers Association. It's the largest gathering of history teachers in the country. I did a workshop for them in 2008. SAG conference, that's Manitoba-wide professional development conference as well. I did a conference in 2011, and Hailed Matrician was there too. She did it for elementary grades, and Hailed did 2 workshops this year there as well. And then Edmonton GETCA is the Greater Edmonton Teachers Conference Association. I just finished doing a presentation for them there. I was shocked. 106 people showed up to one, and 96 to the other. I ran out of teaching materials. That was, that was interesting. So this is on the go. And also presentations to various school boards. I visit schools. Other people visit schools with me as well. We send speakers. Very important to train the teachers. But the most important thing is to not just have 1 or 2 people doing it. We now have to train the trainers so that they can go in with PowerPoints as well. And there will be a PowerPoint in my workbook as well. So this kind of thing has to happen, and it's very important. The writing competition. We are on our 3rd writing competition, and we're very pleased that Saskatchewan has its own writing competition based on what we have done, and that the Americans are doing this as well. I'm going to be handing out a form for you about this present writing competition. It's to students from 14 to 19 who can write an essay, do a skit, a drama, poetry, etc. that we're going to do. All right. Next, the creation of HREC. This has been an important triumph as far as I'm concerned, because there was no place to sort of hang your hat or for teachers to go to a specific organization to get information. All right, next. What are the challenges? Well, each province has its own unique system of education in Canada, so curriculum needs a little different. The next one is local Holodomor education committees have to exist in order to be able to know what to do in each province and to see who you have to see, how to write curriculum, and to be familiar with curriculum. And we're trying to set up these kind of committees. Next, we need to educate politicians all the time, school officials, about what the Holodomor is about. And for that, we require resources, and we have a package that we also hand out to politicians as we are trying to familiarize them with what the Holodomor is all about. Next. Consensus. We have a problem with this, with numbers. Though, it seems the Ukrainians seem to argue about this. I go and do presentations. Nobody ever asks me about numbers. I talk to teachers. They don't ask me about numbers. The Ukrainians are stuck on the numbers issues. And so I think this is something we have to deal with. We can't deal with, direct deaths versus non-births and things like that. We have to get the academics to come down to some kind of a consensus so we could have a consensus. But I know that Professor Sirbin has told me that's going to take years. All right, next. Terminology, the lexicon we use. What do we call it? Holodomor. Does that include only the famine? Does that include other things that have happened to the Ukrainian nation? Professor Sirbin will be addressing that this evening as the keynote speaker. More teaching materials are needed for all grade levels. Some areas require teaching materials in the French language, which we'll have to do in Canada. Excellent website for teachers. Mark keeps telling me that that's the key to success. So that's what we're going to be working on, and that's very important. Genocide courses in schools are already available. The genocide course that the Toronto District School Board brought in eliminated, did not include the Holodomor. And we are going after them. It's been 3 years. It's actually 4 years since they've had it. It's a very popular course, and all over across the country people are buying rights to use the course because it's a locally developed course. They have not included us. They promised to have a review. They haven't done it. Next. And common understanding is what is meant by Holodomor. I've already mentioned that, and Professor Sirbin will be addressing that today. Coordinated effort across the country. you know, when I came into to speak to the Minister of Education in Saskatchewan, it was nice for him to know that I've already visited the minister in Ontario. And this is important. Canadian Museum of Human Rights. You know, in Winnipeg, we're getting a big entity that is federally funded. And they have promised they were going to have the Holodomor interment, and I have dealt with the Chief Research Director. And today the Ukrainian community is up in arms because we are not prominently or permanently going to be in there at the moment. So this is an issue that has to be dealt with. Few professionals to do in-service for teachers on the Holodomor. As I've mentioned before, we have to have sessions just to train teachers. And I'm pleased to see Oksana Kuryliw, who's not a history teacher, but she's doing a fantastic job, which means we can do it, regardless of what you teach, even mathematics. And more resources required, of course. Challenges, we need people who are willing to deal with the school boards, etc. Holodomor denial is a thriving business, even to this very day, as we know. And no feature films available on the Holodomor. Wouldn't that be something, eh? Schindler's List style. We would be very successful. Okay, next. So suggestions, get involved. Active citizens are the cornerstone of democracy. Join your local Holodomor education team and make things happen. We owe it to ourselves and the generations of unborn and tortured souls of our brethren. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And by God, I will not step away from what I can do. Thank you very much.